Conrad, what is alternative resi?
Well, alternative residential has become the accepted description for all types of rental accommodation available in the UK market. Sometimes known as living asset classes or beds for rent. It captures everything all the way from student accommodation through to build to rent, co-living, the broader private rented sector, and then at the other end, senior living and retirement living.
And what is driving demand for these asset classes?
Well, there's lots of things that's driving demand, but I guess I'd pick on two. The first on the supply side is housing. I mean, there's just a lack of housing supply. House building hasn't been delivering the units that's been needed for some time. That combined with a lack of mortgage availability, increase in deposits that are required, mean a lot of people now being forced away from home ownership and the housing ladder into the rented market. And that's really increasing demand. The other thing I'd say is flexibility. The way that people are living is changing. What they want from their home is greater than they wanted in the past. And so I think that desire for flexibility, the desire for increased level of service, the ability to move very quickly, all of those things are much better in the rented sector. So that's driving demand as well. I guess we've said what it is and what the demand is. Obviously, there's some challenges there. What are the challenges you see in this sector?
Well, as you know, Conrad, investors look for good returns and secure long-term income. And viability is a major challenge, as with most residential investment. An outdated planning regime doesn't help here. And also availability of the right sorts of counterparties to deliver the projects. And I believe a greater understanding and greater input is needed from both local and central government.
Yeah, understood. And I think the other thing for me then is not just the challenges, but that does throw up some interesting things that are happening in the market. I mean, what are some of the things that we're seeing? Multigenerational living, that's a key topic at the moment, I think.
Yes, I mean, when you talk about alternatives, you're talking about renting in lots of different ways, because obviously when you talk about build to rent, you could talk about build to rent for retirees, build to rent for young people leaving student accommodation for the first time. It plays out in many ways.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I guess from my side as well, service is really important. I mentioned it early on in terms of flexibility, but I think all of those different types of private rented accommodation require a different type of service. What a student wants is going to be different from what someone wants in their 60s and 70s. So people have got to look at the differences between the services required and how it's given, because customers are going to be different. But at the same point in time, there's lots of similarities. And I think as we're starting to talk to more developers, you can see that actually there are ways of developing and providing these type of schemes that are very similar, but you then have to be acutely aware of the different needs of the customers that will be living in them. So we've got a lot of demand. We've both talked about some of the changes. What do you see as the opportunities in this market?
There is huge potential in these asset classes, driven, as we have said, by shortage of housing and changing lifestyles through the generations. There is a lot of investor demand in this area, and we will see, I think, for example, providers of student accommodation moving into co-living.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's going to be a prevalence of operators from different asset classes looking at how they can provide the service across all those different types of alternative residential. I mean, for instance, let's just say on well-being, from a student perspective, that's been really important for a long while. There's been a real drive by the universities to make sure that the operators take a great degree of, I guess, pastoral care over their tenants, their customers. I think another area is probably technology. I mean, technology's become really prevalent across a number of commercial assets. We're seeing more of it within residential at the moment. But I think when you're talking about that importance of service, the importance of amenity, getting that right is going to depend to a large extent on having a really good technology platform. So I think we're going to see that come to play a lot more as well.
But as we've said, there are challenges. And once we can find some long-term solutions to those challenges, there are very, very big opportunities in alternatives.
I agree.